Hello, my name is Andy Robinson. I played Garrick on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which means I know a little something about truth and lies. What we left behind is merely a documentary. And like most documentaries, it consists of stories recalled in memory fueled by emotion. Now, stories require embellishment. Memory can be faulty, and emotion often obscures clarity. The end result is entertaining, informative, heartfelt. But it is truth as seen through a glass darkly. I'm afraid it's the best we humans can do.
Hello and welcome to TrekChatz, a first-time Star Trek watch podcast from Chats, a television podcast. That was Andy Robinson. My name is Alan, and I'm joined as always by my first mate and best friend in the whole wide world. It's Magellan. Welcome.
Ahoy.
Ahoy, hoy. This is going to be an interesting episode, friends. I hope you're all happy to be here. We're certainly excited to be back for TrekChatz, the last TrekChatz of 2025. And one of our more chaotic episodes. We're going to be talking a lot about chaos this episode, as well as talking about things laid forward, things left behind, perhaps, and much, much more. So sit back, put your feet up, and get settled in for a great episode of a podcast that we bring to you every week. How are you doing, Michelle?
Yeah.
What's new and exciting in your life?
I'm doing pretty well. Let me address the elephant in the room, which in the room that I'm in is probably me, just given how small it is. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
If I sound different, one, I was sick recently and lost my voice. That was kind of fun. Alan, you were there.
I was.
We were at PAX. And
PAX
that
Unplugged.
That was exciting and fun.
Mm-hmm.
PAX Unplugged. And recently, roommate of the podcast, Sam, who folks might remember from one of our Chats in a Pickle episodes where we did Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Sam has moved out of the apartment. And so his room, I'm in the process of transforming it into a kind of multi-use space, a kind of study, office, kitten, hatchery sort of a thing. And I peeked inside this closet and was like, oh my gosh, that is a studio right there. Now, when I originally looked at it, I imagined the microphone being in this little corner. And for reasons I won't get into, I have not yet been able to make that work or make sense. So instead, I'm sitting on a piano bench in this little corner of the closet that is just a bit narrower than my body is. And we're trying it out. There's no soundproofing in here, so I might sound a little more echoey or sound like I'm in a coffin being buried alive. And apologies, but we're experimenting, we're trying things. This is that behind the scenes flavor that you're here for this week on TrekChatz. So
That's so true.
what about you? What's going on with you?
I like imagining that recording space is going to evolve over time, so people get to see it in version 0.5 right now, and then over the months.
Maybe there'll be some Easter egg little stickers right here on the wood panel. Obviously there's lots of space behind me and next to me, just so you can get a sense for the dimensions. This is where the wall is.
God, that's it. Listening, that's it.
That's the wall right there.
But
the genius thing I did, last thing, is all of my stuff right now is actually on a cart, so I can wheel it in and out of the closet.
Oh, that's gonna save a mobile setup.
Yeah, the microphone, the soundboard, everything is on a cart, so
it's a la carte.
A la carte.
That's exciting as hell. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind couple of weeks for me, honestly. Every weekend, the last couple of weekends has been something, whether it's travel or friend visits or convention or, various plans around the city. It's this week is going to be my first truly chill week. This is Thanksgiving week for folks listening, American Thanksgiving. And so I went to the office today and nobody was there. And I was like, why did I go to the office? I don't have to be there anymore until next week. So I'm basically officially remote until next Monday, which is awesome. And I'm looking forward to it. But I did come from, I went to work and then I had to visit Magellan's mom's house for reasons. I was picking up Pokemon cards. So I'm still in my work attire. I literally came from work to that. So that's where I'm at mentally. But I'm really excited. This is going to be a really fun discussion, as I said earlier, because we are talking on TrekChatz today, not about the next Star Trek show that we're covering. We did announce that we're going to be doing TOS, but not yet, because we wanted to take one look back at the 2 shows that we've covered so far and the most popularly recommended documentaries about each of them. Specifically, the TNG documentary produced by William Shatner, Chaos on the Bridge from 2014, as well as the Indiegogo-backed Ira Steven Behr produced documentary What We Left Behind, which is about Star Trek Deep Space Nine and its creation and its behind the scenes, as well as a sort of a narrative thread arc about a hypothetical season 8 premiere that the writers of DS9 would have made. So that's what we got here. Magellan, I want to start by asking you about Chaos on the Bridge, which is our first topic tonight. Had you heard of this documentary before, and did you know anything about it or anything within it?
This was most recently recommended to me by Ryan Slowinski, friend of the show. When Ryan brought it up, it's like, oh yeah, I think I've heard of that before, and maybe in passing, probably before I was even aware enough of Star Trek to understand the dynamics of William Shatner producing and hosting a documentary about the next generation.
Yeah.
And that being like, wait, hold on, man. What's your game here? So I definitely, when Ryan mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, that feels familiar. But I don't think I'd seen it before us watching it. It was pretty easy to find. It was less than an hour. It's on YouTube. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. But what about you? Had you heard about it before? Had any preconceptions about it?
Yeah, actually, before I even knew that I wanted to watch Star Trek like this, I had known about Chaos on the Bridge. It was pretty well regarded by Trekkies in 2014 as like the first piece of like confirmed text, like saying everything that we had suspected about the first 2 seasons. Because the doc is primarily just about the first 2 seasons of TNG and in the lead up to those and how they made them, the pilot, and then that production team before the show, quote unquote, found its legs, and what that meant. So I definitely had been familiar with it and seen the poster a lot, and like you said, it's been very available for a while. It's like on HBO, and it was on Netflix for a while. It's on Prime. It's super accessible, which I appreciate. I love an accessible documentary. And I had most of the details from this I had heard from fans while we were watching TNG, right? So like TrekChatz,
or it's on Memory Alpha, that kind of thing.
Correct. A lot of that stuff ends up being based in Chaos on the Bridge. Mainly the stuff about Roddenberry and just Gene Roddenberry's like legacy and how he led to the show getting created and also led to a lot of its early woes. I think worth noting, as you said, the movie or the documentary is directed and hosted by Captain Kirk himself, William Shatner. I guess scandal noted. He seems like kind of an old fart these days. I don't like have any specific data about William Shatner off the top of my head.
As far as I'm aware, he's just more of your classic, like, oh, that guy's a Republican. That sucks.
Yeah.
Guy.
He hasn't like
might be more to it than that.
Yeah, exactly. And Ryan brought this up, I think, in his Letterboxd review of the documentary. But I think that William Shatner is the most interesting part of this documentary. I think, like, by far, whenever I got the perspective of Shatner on the series, I was like, wait, that's actually what I wanted to see. Because everything else I knew, It's hard to talk about what I feel about Chaos on the Bridge, because a lot of what we learn is, like, this is a show that is wonderful and created by a man with a wonderful vision that is corrupted by his own ambition, his own ego, his own perspective on how the show should look, and then handing that off to various bad actors who continue to hand it off to each other and disagree with each other and take and disenfranchise the series' best writers and basically not enable them to do what they need to do until those other people leave. Did you get that sense as well? That's like, is this a good documentary about bad people, or is it a bad documentary?
I think when you're watching a documentary, there are kind of two principal first lenses you can take on it. I think the first is like, who are the characters that we're following? And obviously these characters are real people, but you're not seeing them in their totality because they're being edited into a documentary. So you're seeing, no matter how faithful the edit might be, a characterization of people.
Yes, big time.
So that is very telling. How are people characterized? And then I think the other thing is that you can look at with the documentary is, what questions is the film asking? Because ultimately the reason to make a documentary, to document something, is to have the artifacts necessary to examine a thing that happened and answer questions about it. It's interesting that you say that William Shatner's the most intriguing part, because to me, I agree, but I agree parentheses, like critical.
Yeah.
As opposed,
pejorative.
Because I think in both of these documentaries, it's interesting. The person who's making it and who is the interviewer,
defines the documentary a little bit.
Defines the documentary, but in a not self-aware way. Like they're sort of acting as if they are conveying the story, but then there's an extent to which, whether it's Shatner or it's Ira Stephen Bear, they're like present at moments where you're like, wait a minute, you're part of the story. Like, we're cutting back to you and you're asking the question, but you're involved. And there's moments where the interviewees will ask a question back to them. And like you were saying, you have that moment where you think, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you were like making Star Trek movies when they said that they were going to make a new show and there was going to be a new captain. Like, I do kind of want to know how you felt about that. And I think the whole time I found it very distracting, because it's like, wait, William Shatner, like, what do you think about Gene Roddenberry? You knew the guy and worked with him for 3 years. Like, what's your take on Star Trek and what it has meant? And I found it, I don't know, just kind of curious. He comes out and says towards the beginning what his question is, which is a question about power. That's what he's interested in.
Right.
He's interested in the way that people take control of an artistic process.
Yes.
And that's intriguing, certainly. And I think the documentary has produced a lot of information that we've then used when we discuss TNG episodes to be like, oh yeah, Tasha Yar is dying at this point. Like, Denise Crosby wasn't enjoying saying yes, Captain, no, Captain. So we're grateful to like have that information as it pertains to analyzing the text of the show. Sorry. But when that's all the documentary is, William Shatner just comes off as like a petty queen who's in it for the drama. Like, he's just like, ooh, okay. And then like, what happened when this guy, oh, you guys didn't like Maury, did you?
Yeah.
And that's fun, but it feels oh my goodness. And that's fun, but it feels like a little surface level to me.
Yeah.
From somebody who was like there and has more to say, and they're not saying it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's both a blessing and a curse that Shatner is the one working on this, because on one hand, yeah, you get the sense that he's just like kind of standing with his, or sitting with his feet crossed, enjoying the mess. But also, I don't think we get this much info if the interviewer is not somebody like Shatner. Like, you get the sense with this one much more than the second documentary that, like, we are getting it. We are in the room where it happens, so to speak. Like, these are people who have conversations that we've like never seen because they don't feel comfortable talking about these with press. And I think if a documentarian was like, I want to do this, they would have been like, I'm not telling you any of this. But that's why I get the sense of like, man, there's a lot of shitty people working on TNG, huh? And that's because they feel comfortable talking to William Shatner and they feel like they're in a room having a drink with their buddy.
That's interesting.
That happens to get made into a movie that he got final edit on. So, you know, I think we're going to talk about like some of the big makers and shakers, but John Pike in particular is somebody who I'm like, you do not get the quotes from John Pike, the reprehensible shit he says in this documentary, if he's not talking to somebody he feels safe around. So it brings up this interesting question, not to get like way too meta, because we're watching Star Trek documentaries, it's fine, but when you make a documentary, you have to think hard about who are you making it and interviewing the people. And how do they see you? Do they trust you? I think a lot about Andrew Callahan from Channel 5, Scandal Noted, obviously, and how Channel 5 is a YouTube channel that can get a lot of interesting info out of people at like rallies and things because Andrew is like a white guy who doesn't present any political leaning. That's the only reason that he can be trusted is he's a good interviewer who doesn't like show that he leans in any direction. He gets the most batch of people from all directions because of that. And so Shatner gets the down and dirty grime of the TNG writers room because he's William Shatner. They respect him. Yeah. It's just that was the thing I couldn't let go of, was this thinking of like, we would not get to see this. I'm like blown away that this is in a documentary and aired, but it again only happens because of who it is. And because these people are like, whatever, our career is over. I don't care. Cancel me if you want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, because when it's I Received Air, which we'll talk about when we do the Deep Space Nine documentary, it's like on some level this guy was your boss or was somebody's boss at some point. But William Shatner, yeah, he's a Star Trek legend, but he wasn't on TNG. So you can have like people who were involved in the dynamics of the TNG production talk to him as somebody who wasn't there but who understands. There's a great moment where Jonathan Frakes is like, yeah, Patrick Stewart was getting annoyed.
Do you need a water break?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
There's a great moment where Jonathan Frakes is like, yeah, Patrick Stewart was getting annoyed because we were like singing and dancing on the set. And he's like, come on, Bill, like, weren't you doing that? So he has this like affiliative tone and this like playful little scampish this like scampish way of interacting with William Shatner because it's William Shatner. So that's a good point. But maybe we should get into the things that we learn, or like kind of the beats of it.
Yeah, the doc starts with this interesting framing of the period of time between the original series and Next Generation as Gene Roddenberry walking alone in the desert. And one of the visual things that Chaos on the Bridge does is it has these animated sequences that are like sometimes traced from real actors' faces and then like hand animated, which is pretty cool. I think it gives a sort of comic book punchiness to the whole affair. It also means that the documentary is very, very, very fast paced. Like Chaos on
frenetic. It's like boom, 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 boom.
Chaos on the Bridge does not linger on anything for long enough for you to think about it, which again is a directorial choice. But it leads to there being just so much info. It almost feels like it's just giving you the download. And so right away they're like, okay, Gene Roddenberry worked on TOS. They told him he wasn't going to get to make another show. You're basically done in Hollywood. And he's like, I don't know what the fuck to do. I have all these ideas. Then we talk about him developing this humanist perspective. He talked to Isaac Asimov, which is crazy. He read his book and he's like, okay, I think I'm a humanist. I want to make a new show. I'm going to pitch this idea to the studio. So that's where we open on Gene Roddenberry. And you get this sense at first that they're very respectful of Gene. And they're like, okay, we wouldn't be here without him. You know, he worked really hard to get the show pitched. I feel like as soon as we start talking about the TNG pilot, though, the aura that Gene Roddenberry has starts to fade away really quickly. And you're like, and the movie does a great job of not like making it like intentionally embarrassing him. It's just kind of like presenting the facts that like this guy was getting yelled at because he did not want to make a 2-hour pilot, and the production studio said, we're going to literally lock you out of the lot if you don't make this pilot 2 hours. He said, fuck you guys, I don't want to do that. And so you're like, okay, good for Gene Roddenberry, like sticking up for his guns. And then the next 10 minutes are DC Fontana, one of the only women writers on TOS, being like, so he asked me to write some extra stuff, and I basically wrote the pilot, and it still wasn't long enough, and so he wrote Q, and then he decided he would take co-writing credit for my pilot. And it doesn't make any fucking sense because Q doesn't fit in the pilot. He wrote the worst part of it. Everything about the pilot is bonkers. It's immediately like, we start with Gene in the desert, and we end within 15 minutes of the documentary. They're like, I don't know what he thought he was doing.
Yeah, this was one of the more interesting stretches of the documentary to me, because ultimately, if this movie's about any one person, it's about Gene Roddenberry.
Yes.
But in a very indirect way, because he's passed away by the point that it is being made. And that's a tricky space to operate in a documentary that's not like, historical or something, but is like, here's a bunch of real people. Because like we got shades of this, I think, when we watched the Prisoner documentary, in my mind.
Yes.
But the documentarian actually got a chance to almost talk to Patrick McGoohan, and then Patrick McGoohan was like, I'm gonna slip out the door in the dead of night, goodbye.
I forgot.
Which is like interesting in its own way.
I forgot.
It's a wild documentary.
Yeah.
But with Gene, it's the documentary is having to walk this really tricky line where clearly he was a guy who was hard to get along with, burned some bridges, had some big ideas that inspired people, and also imposed them upon people. And he was very legacy obsessed. Yet the movie also feels an obligation to honor that legacy. And there's this sense of like there's something owed to him. And what I've also found really fascinating about these dynamics of like getting TNG off the ground is that you have that 20-year stretch between TOS and like the movies getting made starting in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, that stretch of time is fascinating, thinking about the alternate history where Gene Roddenberry was just the guy who made 3 seasons of Star Trek and then failed to ever make a thing ever again. But then he gets to the period of the movies and he's basically been benched for the movie making process.
Correct.
The first movie does poorly, and then they get other people to direct them and write them. And the studio is kind of like, okay, you can have a little desk and be a consultant on Star Trek, but like, we're going to have other people make the movies. And yet when we get to the TV show, he holds some kind of
executive producer
leverage of what, the TV show?
Yes.
No, but I'm separate from like title. I'm talking more about like, there's a part where it's, I think one of the producers is like, because they're talking about that moment where they're arguing about how long the pilot should be.
Yeah.
And Gene's like, no, I want to do an hour. And the studio's like, you got to do 2. And the producer guy's talking to William Shatner, and he's like, look, I was bluffing. Like, I needed Gene Roddenberry. What was I going to do? If he stuck to his guns, I wasn't going to actually kick him off. It's Star Trek. Like, you need Gene Roddenberry attached to it.
Yeah.
And that's really fascinating to me because Gene just kind of ends up representing like the Star Trek that nobody else can make because they don't believe in it as much as he does.
Yeah,
but
totally.
There's like a need for him to exist and believe in it. Otherwise, like,
it's not real. It doesn't happen.
You like lose the Star Trekkiness of it. So it's like nobody wants to make Gene Roddenberry Star Trek, but they want him to like be around to want his Star Trek to be made
Yeah.
so that they can
That's
make
exactly
their own
it.
Star Trek. It's such a fascinating dynamic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the thing about the desert metaphor is Gene is the reason we have TNG. Like he's the one
Right.
who pitched it to the network, and TNG's the reason we have DS9 and so on and so forth. Like they all beget each other, and so it's very easy to finish TNG and be like, well, Gene ruined the first 2 seasons of it, and maybe he just shouldn't be involved in his own show. Death of the author, blah blah blah. But it's like, sorry guys, like it wouldn't have happened. The network hated it. They thought it was dumb. They
Right.
didn't need another one. The previous cast wasn't going to come back. This wasn't going to happen. So
Right.
you come out of this movie being like, I don't know how I feel about Gene Roddenberry. It really bothers
Yeah.
me because time and again, he seems like a really difficult person to work with. He seems like a bit of a misogynist, if I'm being honest. And he has really bizarre ideas for, and a bit of a racist. And he has a lot of like really weird ideas for his show. It's almost like Star Trek is good in spite of him sometimes. Star Trek is great in spite of him, but Star Trek exists because of him. Is the sort of corollary
Yes.
that I would make. It exists because of him, but it's
Yes.
good in spite of him. So, like all of this other stuff, like he wrote the Q part of the pilot, and then he tried to take credit from her. It's a great example of a shitty writer trying to steal credit from a woman, and that's just clear on the page. And DC Fontana just kind of says that, and she's like a lot of this movie is just people being like, "Yep," and that's just how Gene was, or that's just how things used to be. Like it goes back to the Shatner thing, because Shatner actually, I was reading about this. I forgot that he worked on another Star Trek documentary before this. 2 others actually, but the big one was 2011's The Captains, where he went and interviewed all of the captains up to that point. So like Janeway, etc. Janeway, etc. That's it. That's it. I haven't seen The Captains, but what I always heard about it is he's way more of a character. And so Chaos on the Bridge is him being like, I actually try my best to step back and not talk. But
that makes sense.
You make this point earlier where they talk about the guy threatening to kick Gene out of the out of the set or whatever, and Shatner looks so fascinated. He's like eating candy. He's like, and you were lying, weren't you? And the guy's like, yeah, I was lying. He's like, you play poker? And the guy goes, yeah, sometimes. It's like, he's so into it. He's so into the idea of these executives being like, and you were lying. I love it. He's just a little goblin. He's not even the most evil goblin in this documentary. Because that title goes dishonorably to Leonard Maislish, who gets like a solid 5 minutes of every single interviewee being like, okay, so fuck this guy in particular. What did you think about the Leonard Maislish divergent?
Yeah, there's all this this stuff was a little bit less, like I just didn't really know what to make of this stuff. It was kind of the crux of the thing I didn't like about the documentary, which is that it's so preoccupied with almost like you're reading a history book about like a stretch of years where there's all these different kings or something, and it's like, well, this king ruled for 2 years and then this one ruled for 3, and I just like don't really care. Like that's just not the kind of history that I'm interested in. So he wasn't super interesting to me, but I really liked Maurice Hurley, because we saw more of him kind of talking.
Yeah, Maurice Hurley's kind of funny.
He is funny. He definitely seems like a real piece of work.
Correct.
But I loved hearing from him because he was like, look, I'm a workaday TV guy. This is how TV works. You come up with an idea, you write the script, you do the show, boom, then you do the next one. And he was doing cop shows for years. And then they bring him on to TNG, and he's like, okay, cool. Gene Roddenberry has some rules for how the show works, so we're going to follow those. He's going to go to Tahiti, and we're going to make sure people follow his rules. And then Gene comes back, and he's like not following his own rules, and this Maurice guy is like, what the fuck? is this show like? Why are you not following your own rules? Why am I trying to make everybody do things that they don't want to do? This doesn't make any sense. Um, so I really liked seeing him as this contrast to Gene, where Gene Roddenberry's like, I've got these grand designs for this utopian future,
Yeah.
but sometimes I'll break the rules. I don't know. Not really thinking too much about it. And then you have Maurice, who's like, just point me in a direction and I'll go.
Yeah.
This is my job, and I'm going to do my job.
Yeah.
Nobody wants me to do my job. So I thought that all those dynamics.
Yeah. Maurice is Maurice Hurley is like a person. Right, he's a guy who works hard. He seems also like hard to work with. There's a really, really funny part, almost evocative of a reality TV, where a bunch of people are like, you know who fucking sucks? That guy Maurice. And then it's just like, he's so hard to work with. And then we cut to Maurice Hurley and he goes, I hate those people. They suck. And you're like, bro, they're in the same documentary. What are you talking about? It's like people arguing with each other across confessionals. It's so funny. And so I think, as compare him to like Leonard Maislish, who I think he's the type of person who it's really easy to be like, we found him. We found the guy who ruined TNG. He's Gene's shitty lawyer. He stuck into DC Fontana's room and he edited the scripts and he ran away like a little goblin. We should have pushed him out of a window. Ha ha ha. Because he doesn't get to talk. He's not in this documentary.
Right.
And it almost feels unfair. Like, I know that's a person. He sounds like he sucks. I don't know enough about Leonard Maislish, and I don't think it's worth pointing fingers at one individual person. I think the point of Chaos on the Bridge is it wasn't Maislish who did it. It was everyone who did it. We all made TNG seasons 1 and 2 a nightmare to work on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like fun stuff. It's not all people hating each other, people fighting and lying to each other. There's some fun background information stuff in here. I loved hearing about the captain selection process. It's like the most important thing when you make a Star Trek show. Hearing the other people that they wanted to pick, including motherfucking Yaphet Kotto was almost Captain Picard. What are you saying? The fact that in the late 80s they were like, sure, Black Captain, bonkers, amazing. It could have come sooner. I mean, and Yaphet Kotto, one of our great actors, gone too soon. That little nod was amazing. And then I know you noted this too, everything about Patrick Stewart. Not only people fundamentally not understanding who he was at the time, and being like, I don't know, what is this, some Shakespeare guy? And it's like, guys, that's what Star Trek captains are. First of all, they're all Shakespeare guys or women. That's how it works. And then the obsession with him being bald. We can't have him be bald.
Oh my God. It was so funny and strange.
We FedExed a wig from England to get him a good fitting wig. And then by the time it arrived, Gene Roddenberry said, wait, being bald doesn't matter in the future.
Yeah, I know. It's so stupid.
Oh my God. I felt like I was on crazy pills for that whole segment.
Oh my God.
I did like seeing the explicit inspiration was Horatio Hornblower. That's fun.
That was cool. That was a fun little background thing.
British Royal Navy officer from a bunch of books. I thought that's fun to know. Like there was an explicit inspiration for him.
Yeah.
We also get into we talked a lot about Maurice Hurley, the no conflict rule. My favorite part of this segment, which is again for the listener, Gene Roddenberry was really big on this humanism thing and this idea that we would live in a post-conflict society, and that he wanted people to write TNG without conflict between its characters. And you would hear all the different writers be like, so that fucking sucked, and that's not how anybody works. But there's just one part. What's his name? Oh my God, BSG guy. I always Ronald D. Moore. Yeah, where Ronald D. Moore goes, I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool to write no conflict. I kind of liked it.
I thought that was...
The rest of the people are like, yeah, that was the stupidest fucking thing anyone ever said to us. You can't write a show with no conflict. Ron D. Moore is very funny in this because he was like the youngest guy working on the show on the writer's room. So he's just like, I'll do what Gene says. I'm here to learn. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to do work.
Yeah, I'm grateful for his presence in both of these documentaries because he's just kind of like the Miles O'Brien of the documentaries a little bit.
So
Like he's just holding
true.
it down, keeping it chill. I appreciate that.
Yeah, he's very grounded, and it's kind of like eventually 2000s come by, and he's like, I want to remake my favorite show from the 60s, and I'm gonna do Battlestar
Mhm.
Galactica. Like he just got his own thing. He earned his way there. I love that for
Mhm.
him. The last big sort of documentary thing or like background detail thing I liked hearing about was Denise Crosby. This didn't really introduce any info that we didn't know. Basically, that she was unhappy with the role.
Mhm.
But it really, really paints network executive John Pike as just the
Oh
worst
my
person in the
god, that
world.
guy is awful.
Oh my god.
That
And
guy is awful.
it's all in the movie. Like it's not even presented as like this guy's awful.
Mhm.
It's just him saying, "Oh, so Denise Crosby clearly is not Katharine Hepburn." And it's like, "Whoa, why did you say that? Why did you need to bring that up?" And then the part that's like so obvious, like if you didn't get it, like I think it is the editing telling the story for you so that they don't have to have like a voiceover being like, so this guy sucks. They
Mhm.
they linger on him when he says, yeah, so Denise went on to become a motion picture star. Fucking rolls his eyes, and you're like, go fuck yourself, dude. Are you kidding me? Crazy, crazy, crazy thing to say and let yourself be on camera doing. That's
Yeah.
beyond the pale.
It,
Denise Crosby deserved better.
super reprehensible. And then the other part with him is where he's telling the story of like, oh, yeah, I was hearing that Patrick Stewart wasn't happy with his character, so I invited him to lunch, but I made him show up in his captain's outfit, and I made him wait 15 minutes, and then I pretended like I thought he wanted to be written off the show. He never talked to me again. And then it cuts to Patrick Stewart, who's like, I I don't remember that conversation. Like I remember a different conversation. That guy is awful. So
He's
reprehensible.
smelling his own farts. Just huffing his own
Yeah.
farts.
Yeah. And he's like the one who fights for it to be 2 hours long, but then when it comes back shitty, he's like, but I'm not gonna give any feedback to Gene Roddenberry. Like,
How
what am
dare
I, you know? And then what's this jellyfish thing? But everybody loved it. It's like, dude, get the fuck out of here.
You don't deserve to be here. There's a couple people that
Get
I'm
out of
like,
here.
if we are to identify certain problematic people that could just be excised from the show, I think John Pike is actually, I would take him over Leonard Maislish. um, and then, yeah, the last one I had here, just the importance of getting the captain laid. We basically invented Ryza
Oh my
because we were sick of the
God.
captain not having sex. And the way they
Oh my
describe the scene on
God.
Ryza
It
is
was
like,
so
yeah, and then
stupid.
and then everyone's naked and they're all like, and there's implied sex happening in the, and I'm like, listener, I'm dying.
So stupid.
It's just bonkers.
Well, and there's the part where Ira Stephen Bear is like, yeah, so we came up with Ryza and then we like brought it to Gene, and Gene's like, oh, pleasure planet, cool. So like maybe women could be kissing
yeah,
and men could be holding hands. And Ira's like, what is this, the Twilight Zone? Like, what the fuck? And Rick Berman's like, you don't have to listen to that guy. And then we just add the Picard fuck instead. And it's like, what the fuck? I'm happy about this. You brought Ryza to Gene Roddenberry, and he's like, cool, could you make him more chill and more gay? And you're like, gay? This is Star Trek. And then in fucking What We Left Behind, there's that whole obnoxious bit where
the representation part.
yeah,
We'll talk about it.
Don't give us the check.
Oh, we'll talk about it. I gotta get there.
We earned gay. And it's like, you don't think you earned the gay check?
What about the gender check? I can't, listener. I can't. It's so bad. Okay. Any stray notes on Chaos on the Bridge before we move on, Majel?
A couple quick ones. So, let's see. I kind of wanted more Shatner narration, or like moments where he was talking to camera. I love him being like, I became fascinated with the struggle. Not only the creative struggle, but the struggle for power. It's like,
yeah.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah, he's got aura.
The opening and closing credit songs on this documentary are dumb.
Yeah.
They take Maurice being like, "Oh, Gene Roddenberry was wacky doodle," and then they're like, "Cool, great, wacky doodle. So we'll do like a bluegrass montage that ends with like us having a cattle brand doing the title, and then we'll end on a bluegrass montage." And it's like, what?
Apparently, the
Why is
documentary
that
was. I'm not making this up. Apparently, the documentary was going to be called Wacky Doodle.
That is really dumb.
Yeah, it's not great.
Really dumb.
Not great. Yeah, the bluegrass music is not good.
There's a great line. I think it might have been Ronald D. Moore. I can't remember who. It might have been somebody else, actually, one of the original writers, who was talking about, like, when TNG was coming out, it was a reboot in a way of TOS. There was a lot of skepticism about it, and there was this question of like, are we trying to create or recreate? Like, how are we going to do this in a way that feels like it's supposed to be its own thing? And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love Patrick Stewart's kind of like reserved frustration. Like when Gene was against him, he says, "I think he didn't quite understand the nature of my background."
Very respectful British way to say, like, this guy's fucking stupid.
Yeah, like, you don't know that I'm an extremely good actor, but it's okay. It's fine.
You'll figure it out.
And then the other moment I thought was so funny was after the John Pike thing.
Yeah.
He's like, "I don't remember that story, but I remember this one." And Patrick Stewart tells a story about like a news crew that was going to report from the set, and he was kind of against it because this is a serious show. We work hard to make it. And then he shows up on set and he sees them throw it to the weatherman, and the weatherman is about to do the weather in the Star Trek uniform.
Yes.
And he like loses it on the guy. And just imagining that scene is so funny to me.
So funny.
Sir Patrick Stewart walking on set, absolutely cursing himself red in the face at a weather guy wearing the Star Trek uniform. You can't write a scene better than that.
Both of these documentaries have weird relationships with their captains. I wanted a little bit more Patrick Stewart. At least he's in this one. Yeah. And then the whole when we're talking about Denise Crosby, the way they pivot away is Patrick Stewart talking about like conflict, and he's like, "When I think about the Israel-Palestinian negotiations," and they're like, whoa, Patrick Stewart, you can't say that. 11 years on, holy smokes, hey. Just a weird. He's trying to be funny. He's trying to make a point about how like conflict can't resolve itself. It's not okay.
Yeah, I think a fascinating irony that the documentary doesn't exactly put a point on is Gene Roddenberry saying, like, in the future we're going to be past all this interpersonal conflict, and then behind the scenes
it's all conflict,
nothing but interpersonal conflict.
It feels like that should be the whole point of the freaking documentary.
Yeah, like, to me, power is not the interesting question, because by the end of it, it's like, wait, who's in power? There was a vacuum, and then I don't know. I guess Rick Berman, like, who ends up being in power? There's not actually like a clear ending to that story. It's more about conflict and what role does it play in the things we create and in the ways we create them. There's some moment where Maurice is talking about getting yelled at by Gene Roddenberry, who says, "You don't know the difference between shields and deflectors."
Veils and deflectors.
I don't know if I know the difference between shields and deflectors.
I truly don't. I'm sorry to say. I mean, that's the thing that has been a problem in Star Trek writers' rooms a lot. Is there are writers who want to tell stories, and there are writers who like sci-fi. And those should be the same thing, but sometimes they're like, no, shields not deflectors. And sometimes people are like, people are dying. Write stories about people like learning to survive.
No, that's all I got though.
All right, let's take a quick musical break, and when we come back, we'll be pivoting into the 1990s and the 2018 documentary "What We Left Behind," a DS9 documentary.
Welcome back to TrekChatz, the show where we watch Star Trek and Star Trek related media for the very first time. My name's Magellan, that's Alan. Hey Alan, welcome back to TrekChatz.
I could top you. It's a quote from What We Left Behind.
I know.
I could top you. And nothing else.
Well, Terry Farrell, the context is Terry Farrell is pulling Avery Brooks aside like towards the beginning of the show, and she's like, hey, I'm supposed to be like your old mentor, but you're coming at me with this very serious energy that I can't match. I'm too young. I can't top you, Avery.
Yeah. Wow.
It's fun. It's just a fun way to phrase that.
That's it.
Speaking of that and what that was from, we watched a second documentary this week. The second one was What We Left Behind, the Deep Space Nine documentary, created by, directed, I guess, narrated by showrunner of the latter part of the series, Ira Stephen Bear.
That's right.
We're going to talk about what we leave behind. What we leave behind.
What We Left Behind.
Left behind.
You're confusing it because the name of the series finale is What We Leave Behind, or What You Leave Behind.
Oh.
So the series finales of Deep Space Nine is called What You Leave Behind. The documentary we watched is called What We Left Behind.
Got it. This whole time I thought they were the same title for some reason. So
It's supposed to be a play on words.
A little more appreciation for the title now. This one is a bit longer. This is almost a 2-hour documentary, but you can still find it these days on YouTube, which is what I did. I don't know if this is what you did.
I did.
This came out in 2017, I want to say.
The Star Trek Wiki says May 2019. I think that
2019.
The thing is, so it was funded on Indiegogo, as I mentioned. So there was like a long camp. This is like towards the later era of the Kickstarter era, the later part of the Kickstarter era, where things get funded in like movies and stuff. So a lot of people in like the comments for this were like, oh my God, I watched this. Or like Terry Farrell did a video of making me cookies. Yeah. Like there was this like attachment of like the Deep Space Nine cast are making me something, which is exactly what a crowdfunding campaign is supposed to do. So the film's crowdfunded and is then screened a couple times and is now just like pretty much publicly available. The big production things about it were obviously that they had this excuse to make a reunion. They gave them time in the writer's room to spend one day working on the hypothetical season 8. And they remastered all of the footage from Deep Space Nine that's in the documentary. So all of it's remastered to 1080p. This is the only time that has ever happened. So that's just getting the production details out of the way for what this weird monster of a movie is.
Yeah. And this one, in contrast with, to kind of also get out of the way, the ways to contrast it with Chaos on the Bridge. I think tonally, this is obviously a bit more sentimental because it's being made by a bunch of people who had a good time making the TV show and remember it fondly and like each other to some extent, which is nice and also ends up giving it that quality of like a lot of these sort of the Friends cast sit on the set and have a reunion, or like whoever does a reunion where it's just people being like, it was really fun to make a TV show for a long time, huh? And everyone's like, golly, it was fun.
Yeah, it was.
And it's like, damn, I bet it was fun, guys. But like, what? You got something more for me about that? So there's that element to it. There's a bit more production value going on here, and kind of cleverness and storytelling. There's some meta bits. There's some songs in here, a couple parody songs that are fun. And then, as you were saying, a major structural component is these 5 writers getting together and breaking the story of a pilot of a season 8. Which we then get kind of similar to Chaos on the Bridge. We get animated sections, but these are a bit more fleshed out. There's a little more motion in them and color and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's still animatics They're not like fully animated. They're hypothetical, but they do a good
Yeah.
job of being narrated by the writers, being like, and then this happens, and then something. Like it's kind of like how a writer's room would narrate the script of an episode without doing the whole line reading.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. I want to talk about that separately because it's kind of its own thing. But I like the structure of this, the way that they disperse the season 8 thing throughout the whole movie. You're not just getting all of it. It's like you get Act 1 and then you get more documentary, and then you get Act 2 and you get more documentary. That keeps it very engaging despite the length. And I have my problems with both halves of this movie. I definitely have my problems with both halves. I felt better watching it, right? Because like you said, it's a bit more put together. It's a well-made production. The meta stuff is charming sometimes. Honestly, guys, a lot of your enjoyment of What We Left Behind is highly dependent on how you feel about Ira Steven Behr, who is one of the most proud of himself people I have ever known. And I think he can't resist it. I think he is a cartoon man. I think he is extremely scandal noted. We were just talking before the podcast about his whole recent Zionism kick, which is really shitty. And he just loves the thing he made. And it's good that he loves the thing he made. That part makes me proud. And I'm happy to see a showrunner, a genuine down-to-earth showrunner, be like, we worked hard, we made the best thing we could. And acknowledge the fact that it's not perfect. But he's so glad-handy about it. And like I said, your enjoyment of this is so dependent on whether or not you're okay with, I don't want to use the term like filleting, but the way that Ira Steven Behr can just like love his smelling his own farts. He loves it.
Yeah, I saw somebody describe it in the YouTube comments, I think, as a victory lap, which I think is the tamest way to express what you're saying. This is definitely like a pat on the back. We made a cool show, and everybody needs to know how cool it is. And there's like a moment towards the end where there's a clip of him giving a speech to the crew, like, you know, we've changed the Star Trek franchise with what we've done here.
Yeah.
I do think I honestly I was more annoyed with him in Chaos on the Bridge than this.
Interesting.
Because here we see that like proud of myself, I had some great ideas thing, but we also see like this feeling of, oh, I don't think I expressed to people when I had the opportunity how much they did and how important they were.
Yeah.
And he says, like, towards the end of the documentary, you know, initially the purpose of this was to bring the actors together and to give them a sense of affirmation, or, you know, like this was a special thing that we made together. And so I do think there's a lot of him being like, well, and just so you know, like our show had black characters talking to each other all the time, which is like kind of annoying, but also
true,
cool and true that he did do that and was involved in that at the time. So it's sort of like, how do you make a documentary if you're the one who's going to make the documentary about your own show? How do you do that in a way where you communicate, like, here are the cool things we did, and here are all of these fans, which I was a part of it. I really appreciated all these like fan testimonials, direct to camera, balanced with the actors reading like negative reviews.
So funny.
We get multiple perspectives there.
Yeah.
So like, he's not saying anything about Deep Space Nine that is untrue or that we haven't said on our podcast.
Correct.
But he occupies an interesting space in the documentary because he's obviously a character in the story, but is like hesitant to make himself a character, which I think comes from a good place and also a self-protective place. But I leave this documentary like not knowing anything about Ira Steven Behr, even though he's kind of there on the screen the whole time and he's on the poster.
Yeah.
And all I really know about him is that he was involved in making this good show.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of it just ends up feeling strange.
I think this movie honestly owes a bit to Chaos on the Bridge in that
Uh-huh.
it has that similar pacing of like, and another thing we did, but the
Hmm.
difference, and this comes back to the Ira Stephen Bear stuff of it all. How do I phrase this? Gene Roddenberry was often destructive to his own show. Ira Stephen Bear was often constructive of his own show. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean that either of them fixed or ruined their show. It just means that they either added or removed from what made it good. I think Bear
Hmm.
ultimately enabled things like having a scene featuring an all black cast, or having
Hmm.
episodes about, about representation, or having, he didn't do it, but he enabled it. And I think he does, if I can give him some credit. He just seems like a bit of a blowhard, but I will say he's enabling people to do their work, which is the most
Yeah.
important thing that a showrunner can do, is
Hmm.
laying out the pieces for other people to do their work too. You're not just like
Right.
managing and holding on tight. He doesn't seem like a power
Hmm.
hungry guy. He doesn't seem like an asshole. He just seems very proud, and he should be. Like, the show's great, and this is a fan project, right? It
Hmm.
features fans reading hate comments, and or celebrities reading hate comments, and fans reading comments of love and talking about how much the show means to them. It's great. It's supposed to be
Hmm.
a like a glad handing thing. That's
Hmm.
why you back this on Indiegogo, right? Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think the contrast is Gene Roddenberry, and also Chaos on the Bridge shows us a very particular version of Gene, where it is like after those 20 years of wandering in the desert, so which already kind of puts into our minds this idea that he's like a biblical prophet or something, who has this covenant. We need to make a show where nobody fights, and then we are the people who are wandering in the desert trying to earn our way into the promised land, and we're like, but we can't follow these rules, we want to fight each other.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he's like, no, don't you understand, no fighting. um but it's this version of Gene that's very concerned with like um representing a certain set of ideals, irrespective of how those ideals operate in the world and in the show. Whereas Ira Stephen Bear, I don't necessarily know what he believes per se, but I know that he cares a lot about what ends up on the screen, how it operates as a story. And like the writers, the whole writers room and the whole cast, everybody working on the show cares about what's the story that we're telling and how is it affecting people.
For sure.
Um, and like we could care less about the sort of far flung, what vision do we have of the future. We're caring a lot more about using this vision of the future as a way to envision the present.
Which is
And
what Deep Space
I
Nine is. Yeah.
Which is what Deep Space Nine is. So I really appreciate seeing that from everybody involved in the documentary, that there's this collective commitment to like this thing mattering, or meaning something, and you
Yeah.
get that from everybody's kind of talking heads throughout this.
Yeah. I agreed.
Yeah.
For the sake of time, I want to just quickly go down like some big hits from this documentary that I
Hmm.
really liked, some sequences that I loved.
Yeah.
Um, Early on, we talk about Avery Brooks. Avery Brooks has declined to participate in What We Left Behind for I don't know reasons, but they use archival footage from a documentary that he did about himself. I think. So all the clips of Avery Brooks in like that crisp white outfit are from a documentary. So they kind of feel spliced in a weird way, but I got used to it after a
Hmm.
while. Once you understand, like, we couldn't get him, and we're not mad at him. I think he just either was busy or didn't feel
Or
like
you just
talking
didn't
about it.
want to.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with
He
that.
Yeah, he kind of gives the vibe of like, um a lot of people are like, it was such a blessing being on Star Trek. And I think he's right to feel that he was the one who blessed Star Trek.
Yeah, he should be. He should feel that way.
Yeah, and like the clips that we do get of him,
They call him a
holy
jazz
shit, this
musician. They
guy,
said talking
this
to him
guy
feels like
is.
talking to a jazz artist.
It's like this guy is so cool. What the hell? Like I'm so moved by everything, and everybody's the part where Sirach Lofton is like, yeah, he took me to my first Lakers game, and he introduced me along with his kids as one of his children. It's like, damn, Avery Brooks sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I give him no guff for not wanting to be in this. Like it doesn't seem like there was any negativity there, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
They talk about the beard and how like letting him have a beard was significant early on. I love to see that. We see the great detail, and I shouldn't be surprised by this, but it makes my heart feel so warm. Every time there was a Ferengi episode coming up, all of the Ferengi actors would go to Armin Shimmerman's house and just read lines in his living room. And it's like, God, I love that, dude. I fucking, because it makes them feel like a family. It makes them feel like we are the Ferengi. We hold dear these goofy, dumb characters that we get to play. Like, that's perfect, dude.
Yeah. And you told me that before I watched the documentary. And then in the documentary, I was like, oh my God, that includes Wallace Shawn.
That includes the legendary actor and leftist Wallace Shawn.
Chilling with them. And then the woman who plays Lita is like, God, it was so fun going there and doing. And it's like, oh yeah, she got to go too and like kick it with Wallace Shawn and run lines. That's awesome.
Yeah, they that's truly a dream. There's a little bit about Not a Visitor talking about Odo and how the only reason they put them together is because they had a lot of chemistry in the dailies, which goes to show how like the actors they talk about this, but it's saying like the actors can bring to a story something that the writers could never bring. Like we did not intend for that, but they just like they were like, you could look at Renee looking at her and be like, that guy loves her. And it was like, okay, we just have to write that. I think that's fascinating. Mark Alimo, I'm so glad to hear, is as weird and unhinged as Gul Dukat. He's just fucking weird.
My God, he's a strange guy. He was so entertaining. Yeah, there's like simultaneously a lightness and a darkness to him. That was really unnerving.
He's like funny. He's the uncle listener who you're like, wait, why'd you say that?
He's so animated.
Yes.
And kind of like self-conscious. And there's this whole bit where he's like upset about how nobody told him that he was doing a good job. And you're like, oh, you really mean this. You're really upset about this.
You're still upset about this.
You're like steamed about this. What is happening? And the bit where he's like, my goal with Nana Visitor was to break her and get her to have an affair with Dukat. It was easy to want her because I wanted her. You fucking joker. What the hell?
I love Mark Alimo. He scares me.
He's a real character.
Not a Visitor is like, I would have slept with any. I would have been with a Cardassian, but not Mark Alimo because I don't think it's fucking weird. I don't think we had chemistry like that.
And at least the way that they presented it in the documentary, it seems like that's a Freudian slip, and she meant to say Gul Dukat,
Gul
but
Dukat,
like, not Mark
Alimo. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
This is the joy of this documentary, is seeing the actors be their character. Like Andrew Robinson is Garrick. He just kind of is Garrick.
Oh my God. He's so fun.
I was genuinely, I love joking about how much, not joking, I love shipping Bashir and Garrick. That's like my favorite Deep Space Nine ship, more than O'Brien and Bashir, honestly. What do you mean shipping? Andrew Robinson's like, yeah, he wants to fuck Bashir. I'm like, wait, no, get out of my brain! Get out of my brain! Stop saying what I'm thinking! This is weird that the actor, 20 years on, is going like, yeah, my character wanted to have gay sex with Bashir. I'm like disturbed. I'm disturbed, but also thrilled. Thank you. This is, I guess, the representation I wanted.
Yeah, and there's also that bit. Well, two things. There's the other part. I guess we'll talk soon about Ira Stephen Bear being like, we should have made the show more gay.
Yeah.
Garrick should have come out as gay and been gay for several seasons. So it's like that was in the mix. The other thing, the bit at the beginning where he's doing like the Garrick lines, like this monologue that's like a Garricky monologue.
Yeah.
Without the Cardassian makeup is terrifying.
It's so scary.
It's like Garrick with the Cardassian makeup is like, oh, you're kind of scary. But when it's just a human man, you're like, you're going to kill me right now. You are a very frightening fellow. So that was pretty
a
cool
good
to see
actor.
the talent on display. Yeah.
We mentioned the cast rate negative reviews of the series. Mostly the negative reviews are like, it's different. It's so, why is it woke? It's like kind of fascinating hearing them be like, why is it progressive? Who needs a black captain? It's like, some things never change, huh? Ira being friends with Bill Mooney is really wholesome. He's like, we
I
got
love Bill Mooney showing up for a couple of minutes in the middle.
the little Babylon 5 connection. They briefly acknowledged like, yeah, there was some other similar shows on. We know. We're not stupid. Talking about how the Dominion are the first new villains in Star Trek in a while and how that was cool. Another early favorites moment for me was, and this segues into the racial discussion, Avery Brooks not being able to get out of character in the filming of Far Beyond the Stars. When Benny's on the floor and they're like, he went method, like he fully became that character and like believed it, and you're like, that's beautiful, because that's a character who can't step out of his role as well. Like it's perfect, of course. Of course he falls into that, the like truly caring and wanting to believe in this story and the importance of representation. Seems like it really did matter to Brooks a lot, and like of course he put his whole heart and soul into that performance. It was beautiful to see. They used that to lean into some racial stuff and talking about Trump really briefly, which I thought was fun. It really goes to show how cyclical time is when they played a clip from Trump talking about how I think it's from the Charlottesville white supremacist rally.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Where he's like, both sides had good people, and you're like, oh God. And I literally forgot, listener, that was from the 2017. I was like, oh, he said that yesterday. Or that was about January 6th. And it's like, no, he's been saying shit like that for almost a decade now, guys. So a lot of political stuff in this that they're like, yeah, we know that the show is getting more relevant, and they are at the cusp of the Trump administration. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
That racial stuff then segues into Terry Farrell, who I think they give her enough time, but I just personally wanted a little more about her leaving. I think that they gave her enough to be respectful, but not enough to like let it suck the air out of the documentary,
Yeah, there's like a moment where she says like there was an executive or a producer or somebody who said like I was going to be working at Wendy's or whatever it was, or Kmart.
If you weren't here, you'd be working at Wendy's.
And then Ira Stephen Bear's like, whoa. And then they kind of just cut to like the head of Paramount, who's like, yeah, she got to me, which means that everybody already wanted to fire her. So what are you going to do?
Sorry.
And there's like not that I needed them to be like, it was this guy specifically, but there's like this immediate kind of, oh, that sucks. Anyway, we're not going to address that or take accountability for Terry Farrell having this like bad experience.
Right.
Yeah, but she's in it like a fair amount.
She is,
which is nice. Yeah.
She talks in that sequence about how she got to fight a lot, and she was like, "I'm glad that like they let me match up with Worf." And they talk about the Ezri stuff too. They have a little bit with Nicole Ward that she's like, "Yeah, I stepped into a role that I knew people weren't gonna like me in, and I chose to do it. Like the people on the crew treated me well. It wasn't like I was brought on and everybody was mean to me." It's like, no, they were fine. That's the fun thing about this documentary is you, especially after Chaos on the Bridge, you're like, and then they treated you like shit, right? And they're like, no, like people were kind of
long days. It was kind of hard to wear the makeup, but
other than that, no one yelled at me.
Yeah.
Weird how you can make a really serious and consistently good drama when you like treat your actors well.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Super interesting. Just want to say that. Okay, then we get to the thing that we've been. Oh, sorry. There's one more little bit about fans joining the military because of this show, which I thought was fascinating. There's like a 30 seconds where everyone's like, I'm in, corporal in the military because of Star Trek, or Avery Brooks inspired me to join the military. And you're like, is that what you got out of Deep Space Nine? I respect you for the decision, but that's
there's also then the bit of like it helped people with their PTSD, which I was happy to see that.
Yes, Aaron Eisberg literally crying at his own thing, like when people would come up to him. I loved that. R.I.P. by the way. Yeah, that was all good. And then we get the part that Majan and I balked at really hard. That maybe not like Ira Stephen Bear anymore. The movie gets really meta for a sec, and the editor of the documentary "What We Left Behind" is sitting in the editing bay next to Ira Stephen Bear, And we
Mhm.
have this checklist on the screen that's in like Star Trek font, and it's like
Mhm.
racial stuff, check, war, check,
Religion, check.
religion, check, and then it says like sexuality, and the editor turns to Stephen Bear and he's like, "What do you think about that?" And then we get the scene of, Dax with her, past lover, female lover, and the kiss, and he's like, "I don't think we earned it. Like, I don't know. I think we tried, but I think the reality is that like that's not the representation that people needed at the time or need now." And it's like, okay, that's a bit of self-awareness that I actually kind of appreciate. But the movie's just it's always self-aware. It makes me angry. The guy goes like, "So what should I put there instead? X?" And he's like, "No, I mean, we did try." And he goes, "How about this? Question mark." And then just because they have to, because 2019 and we're kind of like at this burgeoning moment of like trans rights under this new revolution of trans rights,
Mm.
they go like, "What about gender stuff?" And Ira Steve Bear's like, "All right, what about Profit and Lace? Does that give you trans representation?" And Ira goes, No, it's funny. It shouldn't have been funny. It sucks." If we wanted this, then it should have been a serious episode, and it's not. I wouldn't give it to us. How did you feel about that whole sequence?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think, like you're saying, I appreciate the self awareness to sort of be like, we can genuinely point to specific episodes as well as like continuing patterns of representation, specifically for like the black characters on the show,
Yes.
to say, hey, we were doing something that was not happening on TV at the time and is still rare. And that's like a thing that Deep Space Nine did on purpose and is proud of doing. And it's like, yeah, cool. That's great. Um, and I think I appreciate the self-awareness to say like, and we had like an episode where there was a lesbian relationship and
Yeah.
there's like gender stuff with Dax, but for the 90s there were other shows that were blazing the trails of LGBTQ representation on television. Not saying that it was easy to do, but I think Ira Stephen Bear recognizes like we could have done more. Like this was a place where we didn't push, and I wonder if he's reflecting. This is me maybe getting a bit too psychoanalysis,
Sure.
but maybe he's feeling like there was something about like his own comfort level or whatever that might have had an impact on that. But then it still feels like the documentary is going out of its way to be like, but we get it now, and if we were to do it again, we would know how to do it the right way. And in the
Right.
examples that he gives, I'm like, I'm not convinced. Like, I don't know if the problem with Profit and Lace is that it's funny and it should have been dramatic. Like, I don't actually know about that. I famously also, I think, liked Profit and Lace. So don't ask me. Um, or I liked some things that it was trying to do.
Sure. You liked elements of it.
And then he's like, and we should have made Garrett gay, like super gay. He should have been like, Bashir, I'm gay. And it's like, maybe, yeah, that could be interesting. But then he doesn't want to get any further about like what that could have meant or done.
That's what I was gonna say.
Or like, why do that? So I'm just not convinced by the confidence in believing like if we did it again today, we would do it the right way. It's like I just don't know. But I appreciate that the thinking has changed.
Especially considering what we see of the hypothetical season 8, you're like, were you guys gonna do it right? What is this? But we'll talk about that in a sec. I think, yeah, this movie just has bullet points of things that are cool, that it likes, or that it says they wish they did. And I don't think that's enough. Like, that's a very 2019 version of what good representation looks like. It's like, just throw a gay character in there. Throw more stuff in there. Put like better trans
Mhm.
rep. It's like, what does that mean? Like these days, the general answer is like hire writers who have that lived experience. Like Ira Stephen Bear is not the guy to run that ship.
Mhm.
I don't care that he has
Mhm.
a colorful
Mhm.
beard. That man is not a queer person, to my understanding. So like it's
Yeah, that's a good point because I think, like with Far Beyond the Stars, there's a moment where they're like, "Oh, Avery should be directing this episode." So
yeah,
there's this
totally.
conscious like, okay, we had a plan for who was going to steer this, but we're actually going to give up some power here for the sake of telling the story the right way. And yeah, I think you make a good point where it's like, what's the analog to that for the kind of
Other
queer,
representation stuff.
the queer part of it? Yeah.
It was the '90s. I give them a little bit of grace, but not a lot, you know. But like you said,
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
people were doing it. So, um, yeah, there's other tender stuff, and I think in general this just paints everybody in a really friendly light. It's fun seeing everyone in nice outfits and looking fresh and
Mm-hmm.
handsome.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the Babylon 5 thing where there's this like air of tragedy over the whole thing. It's like we can actually bring the DS9 cast back, and
Mm-hmm.
besides Renee Auberjonois and Aaron Eisenberg, like they're all still alive. They're all
Mm-hmm.
still, many of them are still acting. Andrew Robinson does a lot of TV stuff. Like I've like, seen these actors still working, which is just good to see.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get that very often with these shows. But then we get the credits, which like there's like this is how you know it's a Indiegogo thing is the credits are way too long and there's so many Easter eggs in
Mm-hmm.
the credits. It's just like 87 parts of Ira and Nana Visitor going like, what about this? Why didn't you talk about trials and tribulations? And he's like, we put it in the special features. It didn't fit in the movie. And there's a part where they show all the cut content, and there is an interview with Jonathan Frakes in the cut content, like in the background. And I was like, oh, I gotta find that. There's lots of, and then she's like, why didn't you talk about duet or why didn't you talk about this? And it's just very refreshing to hear Bear be like, we have to cut things. Like, yes, we have a lot of interviews. We cut a lot of shit. And we can't just, this can't be 3 hours of glad handing. Like, at some point, we had to make a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But before we wrap it up, I do want to briefly talk about the hypothetical season 8 that's proposed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Essentially laid out as many years later as a sort of like everyone's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
We come back to Deep Space Nine in theory to honor Vic Fontaine. Which we're getting to see the act. Speaking of seeing cool actors, the actor for Vic just be Vic Fontaine is so fucking funny.
He has not aged a day.
Not a second.
He looks young and crisp. And I love it, the moment in the writer's room where they're like, yeah, so Vic Fontaine's there. And they're like, should we? And they're all like, no.
Yeah,
no,
yeah, of course.
He's really important. Like, we love Vic Fontaine.
Yeah.
It's like Ronald D. Moore, the most reasonable guy I've ever seen on this screen. Like, I think we all really love Vic
I think he's the best person ever.
Yeah.
Essentially, we lay out that everyone is brought there for this, and then Cisco's other son comes back as part of an investigation, and also Bajor still hasn't joined the Federation, so Kira's dealing with that. The Jem'Hadar are joining the Bajorans because they don't have a Dominion to lead them anymore. Nog discovered this, and he was tragically killed. There's a conspiracy. Bashir joined Section 31. Just like stuff that sounds great on paper. And you're like, how do you turn this into something? And it all ends with Cisco appearing and saying, I'm sorry, Jake. I lost track of time. Okay. So I think this is, we've seen, when we watch a lot on Should You Watch and otherwise, we watch a lot of like reboots and reboot sequels.
Sure.
This is one of those, man. This is like, look at everyone. They're all back. They're old now. Isn't that cool? And like, I guess I want that, but what does this season look like? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's tough is, at the beginning when the writers are talking about it, they're like, oh, so we should try to come up with something that we could actually make. Like this should be it's the real life actors aged the amount that they've aged in real life.
Yes.
because I think this would be a lot different if they were sort of like, well, what would have happened if we had gotten the season 8 at
Yeah.
the time, and we could just kind of tell the story that would have naturally followed from the story we were already telling.
Yeah.
But whenever you are like, okay, we're going to do this 20 years later thing, we're going to come back. There are kind of these like assumptions that come into that I think make stories go in a certain way, because you're assuming all the characters need to like reunite.
Yes.
And all the characters need to be important or
Yes.
matter to whatever is happening. So then you end up getting like Kira's the Vedic and Bashir is the head of section 38, 31, 30, whatever it is.
31.
And like Worf is the head of the Klingons and da 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 da. Like everybody's here and they're all important. And then it's sort of like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like that's just not really how life goes.
Exactly. Totally.
It's very contrived for all of these characters to end up in like super important positions in this new plot. But that's not necessarily the fault of like the story that they broke. That's more just demands coming from the fact that you're creating this reunion thing that necessarily is like, well, we want to see all our favorite characters again.
Yes.
And we want them all to be important.
Therein lies the issue, though. Does everybody need to be important? This is all like this
Right.
episode is based. This hypothetical episode is basically here's everyone. Here's what they're doing and why they all matter. Let's bring them all back for one big adventure. And it's like, okay, so like, did you not? They had one day. I understand they didn't write a whole season, but it just feels like
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing is like, if you were just to write, like if you're any one of those writers, you were like, hey, write a Deep Space Nine novel.
Yeah.
That's set 20 years after the end of the show.
Yeah.
They would probably take that and be like, okay, who am I going to focus on? Like that's where the story would go, is these characters would be scattered to the four winds. They'd be having very different experiences that might gradually lead them back to each other or cause them to like seek each other out or whatever. And that's probably what the story wants to be. But because there's this demand of like, well, it's a TV show, it's the first episode of a season, all the actors are coming back together, we have to pay them all. Everybody wants to see all their faves. And then it's like, okay, how do we do that? How do we get everybody in here? And how do we make it an exciting episode of television? There's a fight. We're in
boom,
space.
explosion.
Oh my
Nog
God.
dies.
Nog dies. And like Nog dying is not from a story demand. It's Ira Stephen Bear being like, this is Deep Space Nine, baby. Don't get too comfortable. It's like communicating a meta thing about
Yes.
and there's this very interesting moment where they're like, okay, there's a mystery, and who investigates mysteries? Well, it's Odo. And then they're like, well, but Odo's in the goop right now. So
we'd probably have to get Odo out of the goop.
Yeah,
That stuff's interesting.
And then Ira Stephen Bear's like, we can wait to get him out of the goop. Like, we can make people wait.
Yeah.
So that's a moment where they sort of tack against what I'm saying. Is the demand, but overall the inertia is in the direction of like, get everybody in here, everybody's happy to see each other, everybody's got a job to do.
Yeah.
And from there it kind of, but then on the flip side, Bashir is evil, or like Kira is up to bad stuff. You're like, I don't want to see that either. Like, I don't want to see these characters who figured it out be further along in their lives and they've unfigured it out. Like, that sucks. Even if that's how things go sometimes. So I don't know. I don't know how you do this well.
I think this is fine. I think
it's
for
fine.
this, like for the sake of this documentary and for them knowing that they're not going to make this, sure.
Yeah.
Like if they were really seriously going to be like, we have enough actors who are alive and willing that we want to do it, like take another crack at it. I don't know how you write it, because I know a lot of fans just want this. They do just want to be like, look at them being cool, and that's fine. I personally don't really want that. I want to see, like O'Brien settle down. Here's what it's like being a parent and a teacher at Starfleet, and like here, like I don't want everybody to be important. I really don't. I think after the Dominion War, the DS9 cast deserves to chill out and like not have something like this. So
yeah, because I think the thing about stories is my general assumption when we're encountering a character in a story is that we are encountering this character in one of the most pivotal periods of their life.
correct.
And they're going to continue to have stuff happen to them, but they're not going to have anything else really, really important happen to them. And that's okay. Like, we can want to see them again, but if we do that, we have to kind of like make important the seeing, and that sometimes makes the previous encounter with them feel less important.
Yes.
In relation. And I mean, we saw a show that tried to do this, which was Picard, and people thought it was bad.
Exactly.
Because of all of these reasons, right?
Bingo.
But I think this does make for a very fun, if we're just thinking about it as like, well, they didn't actually break the story to come up with a season 8. They broke the story to create a spine for the documentary.
Yeah.
I think it's a very creative way to add structure to a documentary. And I think the editing, they do a really smart job of like doing a bit of the proposed pilot and then being like, okay, here's some stuff we need to remind you of to understand the next part of the pilot. Oh, Bashir shows up. We got to remind you about Bashir and like some stuff.
Yeah. The mechanics of actually bringing this stuff back.
Yeah. So I think this is a very well edited documentary. Using this as kind of like the through line of it, even if there are pieces of it that I don't love. But the bit where Molly shows up and she's like, I've flown with Captain Nog, and he's fucking sick, and he would not make a mistake like this. I'm Molly as an adult. And then later in the documentary, it's like, hey, I'm a real life Molly as an adult.
Hi, I'm Hannah Hate. What's up?
It's a really cool show. You're like, whoa, hello, you grew up.
You're an adult woman. It's weird.
Congratulations on being alive for so long. Yeah.
Any other final thoughts on what we left behind?
Let's see. A couple quick ones. There's this great bit of fan testimonial.
Yep.
Where it's all these women being like, they're great women on this show, and like Terry Farrell inspired me to be a scientist, and like Not a Visitor kicks ass. And then there's this one femme fan who's like, there's so many great women on this show, like Moogie and Lita and Keiko O'Brien. And I'm like, yes. And then
Moogie.
they cut from that to this really stupid montage. It's so reductive and like, hey, don't touch my hips, I'm a strong woman.
Yeah.
And it really bugged me after this like very cool bit of all the fans talking about not only how great the women are, but like how diverse
the spectrum of femininity, totally, which
is like one of the biggest glaring problems of the Next Generation, in my opinion.
Right. Good point.
And is like, I hadn't thought about it, but is a really special thing about Deep Space Nine, that it's kind of a deep bench of female characters. But yeah, that bit was frustrating. But I loved the interview. I loved Iris Stephenberg talking to the young girl dressed as Kira Nerys at the convention and being like, yeah, she's awesome. And then later, it might have been that same kid, and he's like, what are your favorite episodes? And she's like, I love the last 10.
The Dominion War.
He's like, whoa.
Okay. That's the thing about being a Deep Space Nine fan is you're like, what's your favorite episode? You're like, oh, it's the Union one, or it's the one where war happened. What do you mean?
Yeah, but this little kid is like, yeah, I thought it was really sick, like what you did for television serialization and like long form storytelling, and, really deep themes. And he's like, what?
The best, you just reminded me, speaking of favorite episodes, if you stay to the very, very, very end of the credits, Ira goes, we have this is really like the best scene in all of Deep Space Nine. Like everyone agrees on it. It's the scene from season 1 where they play the fictional game and they go, Alan Meringue, da 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 da. It's like, I was like, oh my God, I forgot that happened. I literally deleted that episode from my brain. Get it out. I don't want to see it. Again, self-awareness is good. I'm sure they look back on that episode and laughed at this point.
Yeah. I love seeing all my side character faves. The guy who plays Rom singing us in, and then the whole crew of him and Armin Shimmerman and the Wayun guy and the Damar guy doing a barbershop quartet at the end was so beautiful.
You can't dream of this, man. They couldn't. This is like, what if you're gonna get the cast together, you put them in a fun outfit, you write them a song,
And I love also the little aside with all the writers being like, wow, you know who was great? Damar. He became really important. And they're like, yeah, Damar was awesome.
And the actor goes like, yeah, it was a great arc. It was a great arc.
Great arc. Avery Brooks has this amazing line in one of his archival interviews where he's talking about what was so special to him about playing Captain Sisko. Where he says that I would be human, completely human, and brown too.
Yeah.
Talking about like, I'm in the future and I don't have to wear like a bunch of alien makeup. I can just be a black guy who's a Star Trek guy.
And that's it. That's all it needs to be.
The way he says it, it's like, God damn, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's serious. There's a part where a bunch of the cast say like talking to Avery Brooks felt like he was a jazz musician. Like they have like everyone saying jazz musician over and over again. And like, yeah, you listen to that archival footage and you're like, he just talks like that. He's so interesting. He's this like magnanimous figure who's like seems again pretty easy to work, like pretty nice from what I hear, and just like proud of his work. And I think we should let people like him be proud of their work. It's that simple.
Yeah. I think I have like 2 more quick things.
Yeah, we gotta get you out of that closet, brother.
I know. What was it? Oh, I really like the Michael Pillar love in this. Because there's like he's like the last in the in memoriam part at the end.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's kind of talking like Michael Pillar was cool. There's a bit where they're talking about how some writers are talking about how he set up this like process for people to send in spec scripts to Star Trek basically, and that was like kind of an unprecedented thing that got a lot of people jobs writing episodes. And Ira Stephen Bear says this really cool piece of writing advice from Michael Pillar, which was, in this scene, don't be afraid to empty the pockets, which is his way of saying like the character should feel like the
bring
full
everything
extent of what they feel. And I think that's such good writing advice, because as a writer, I feel like often the instinct is, let me hold a little bit of this back so I can use it later.
Yeah.
But to empty the pockets in a scene and trust like I'm going to put it all out there and that's going to then lead to something is like, I think, really powerful advice.
Agreed.
So I like that a lot. That's mostly it. There's a cute moment where Aaron Eisenberg gets fake upset about Nog being killed off, and he starts like cursing everybody out and storming off the set. And immediately he's like, "Was that good? You guys like that? All right, cool.
How was that? I should do it again."
Yeah. So overall, fun times at the movies.
Yeah, this one made me feel really good. Magellan, when we come back to TrekChatz in 2026, we're going to be covering TOS.
We are.
Which had just 3 seasons, 26. I think the first season has 29 episodes. The rest are 26. My question for you, just it, we're spitballing here. Are we going to continue to split those in half like we did with Deep Space Nine, or are we going to go back to the TNG method of doing a whole season at once?
Good question. I'd be curious what people's suggestions are for that. The half seasons has definitely made it easier to do as a podcaster, because it's just like
less watching for each session.
Less watching, and my like time estimation brain is just not very well developed to be like, oh, 28 episodes. I should probably start this like a month ahead of time instead of a week ahead of time. So for that reason, it's like more appealing to do the half seasons. But I wonder about, I mean, we could find stuff to talk about to do an episode.
Yeah,
It's
we're
just
not
like,
at a lack of things to talk about.
Is that like a valuable exercise? I don't know. My inclination is to keep doing half seasons because it's easier on us, and I don't think people would be upset at more Trek chats.
Yeah, right. But especially at our current
people
schedule.
Think I'm right, but if people think I'm wrong and they're like, I don't want to hear you do that, just get through TOS, then we could consider that.
It would only take about half the year. I know that sounds like a lot, but that's like 6 months. 6 episodes in 6 months. We can do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way to drag out TOS more than that. I think that's a good length. I agree. I think for our sake, especially it's a lot less serialized, but there's still serialized elements to TOS from what I remember. And I think we can like appreciate the discussion of some of the different arcs, and the rankings will be a lot more fun when it's like each episode is its own standalone thing. But I'm very excited to dig into that. So we'll talk. I want to hear from the listener. But for now, what are we doing next time on Chats, a television podcast?
Next time we're returning to the Beowulf arc of Xena.
Yes. Oh,
pretty fun. Yeah, Howl at the Moon, you little Beowulfs. So we're doing Xena season 6. And what are those episodes? Golly gee, I'm pulling it up. So sorry, G. We're watching episodes 9 and 10.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
Return of the Valkyrie and Old Ares Had a Farm. First, Return of the Valkyrie. Beowulf finds Xena a year after she first put on the ring and lost her memory. Now, never mind. Da-da-da, da-da-da. I shouldn't have said that.
Well, we knew all that. We know the stuff that you said out loud.
We did?
That Xena lost her memory? Yeah.
Yeah, but did you hear the first part of that
oh, no.
clause?
Oh, that there's a... Yeah, I mean, I think I was just aware of that, but don't say anything else.
Okay. And then... Episode 10, Old Ares Had a Farm. Xena and Gabrielle hide the mortal Ares in her family's old farm when his enemies put a bounty on his head. They disguise him as a farmer and manage to drive off the bounty hunters. Okay, that sounds fun.
Why is that one rated way higher than like anything else this season? What is happening?
Because that sounds absolutely delightful.
After all the chaos of the Beowulf arc, they're like, we hide Ares in a farm. in a farm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
A little farm episode, no problem.
I want to see shirtless Kevin Smith on a farm. I'll pay good money for it. I already bought the DVDs. Anyways, that's fantastic, Magellan. I'm excited about it. Where can people find you on the internet in the meantime?
You can find me on another podcast that I do with my friend Justin called Super Smash Echoes, where we play video games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise, Super Smash Echoes. Check it out. You can also find me on Bluesky at notthatmagellan.bsky.social and on Ghost at not-that-magellan.ghost.io. Alan, what about you?
You can find me lip syncing Magellan's part of the Plug Zone, and you can also find me on Bluesky at Ibrahim, Aibrahim. I can't look at you when you do this to me. I'm also on the Creature Corner, my Pokemon podcast I do with my good friend Six. And I'm on the Garnet Wager with Six and Nick. I'm talking about Korean game shows. So Pokemon, Korean game shows, Bluesky, and this. It is an off episode of the podcast, so I will do the Plug Zone if that's okay with you, Margie.
Sounds good.
If you would like to get a hold of us, we have a couple ways for you to do that. We are our email address is chatzpod.gmail.com. CHATCPOD is how you spell that. Send us emails, send us questions about your favorite Star Trek episodes or whatever you want, or what you thought about these documentaries. We are collectively on Bluesky at chatzpod. We are also on YouTube, where we release video versions of the podcast, ideally 2 days after the audio version releases. You can see my shirt almost coming undone. You can see Magellan literally inside of a closet. You can see a lot of different things on the Chats YouTube channel. Like that. Consider rating us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That's a good way to get the algorithm in our favor so new people discover the pod. We've been getting some new folks recently, especially on YouTube, which I really just love to see. And if you have the financial means, please support our Patreon. It's patreon.com/chatspod. $1, $3, $5 a month to get you bonus content. Get your suggestions put into a cup that Magellan pulls from. We're going to have to figure out a way to get the cup into the closet at some point. Maybe get a closet cup.
I could put it in one of the shelves on my cart, no problem.
Oh, perfect. So you have the little, yeah. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
$3 a month gets you that and all the backlog of Patreon content where we watch other things, play things, talk about whatever. If you like our banter and you want to hear that in a non-TV context, the Chats Patreon is the place to go. There's also a Chats Discord where you get access as a patron, and you can talk about TV shows with us and hear about updates about the show. And $5 a month and more get you everything I just told you, plus thanks at the end of the main feed. So thank you to our $5 plus patrons, who as of today include domestic partner of the podcast, Amanda, Arthur, Emily, Emrys, Felicia, Jen, Justin, girlfriend of the podcast, Kelly, Kyrie, Lee, Marcus, Magellan's mom, Nick of the Brothers at Infinite War, Noel, Six, and Stefan. Thank you so much for supporting Chats. Thank you also to Camilla for creating our podcast art. She's at Camilla Strader on social media. And last but not least, before we take it home and before all the oxygen runs out of that closet, Magellan, do you have a chatsum or chatsums for me this week?
Boy, do I.
Boy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have the most amazing chatsum of all time. The chatsum I never thought would come, but it has arrived. Blessed be Masahiro Sakurai for bringing us the long-awaited, decades-awaited sequel to Kirby Air Ride. Kirby Air Riders for the Switch 2.
Oh, boy.
Kirby Air Ride is one of my favorite games of all time.
Same.
I've spent so many hours driving around that free play city, exploring every nook and cranny of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this new game is like, hey, we did the old game, but we made it look sexy as hell. We made it chaotic as fuck. We added like 30 guys and like 10 more cars and way more ways to fight and so much stuff to do. And it's going to be fun. Okay. You're going to have fun doing this. It takes the Super Smash Brothers approach to sequels, which is like, okay, you know, that last game that we did, we're gonna boom, way up it. We're gonna go way beyond what we did. Everything we did, and then kaboom, more game. And it does that with Kirby Air Ride, and I could not be happier. So Kirby Air Riders, check it out.
Bless.
What about you? What's your chatsum?
John stole that chatsum from me, even though we came up with it separately. It's just so good. I want to double. I'm going to re-chatsum Kirby Air Riders because double and give it to the next guy. A lot of times sequels are like, what if we added this? What if we changed the formula? And they're like, no, the formula was fucking perfect. We even put Top Ride back in. Nobody was excited about Top Ride, and yet it's back.
I was excited about Top Ride.
And it's better because you can pick any car instead of the 3 stupid cars. You can actually drive real cars or stars. It's great. Listen to Super Smash Echoes eventually for takes on Kirby Air Riders.
Oh, yeah.
I fucking love it so far. I want to play it always. I always want to be playing it. My other chatsum, actually, I wanted to do 2 quick board game chatsums. We were at PAX Unplugged. I feel like we owe it to the fans for some board game talk.
Yeah.
Both of mine are card based. I'd say the 2 biggest like standout card based board games that we played, Dust Biters from Again, William Neiman, Terry Velman, and Robbie Fraser, is a wonderful pocket wallet card game where essentially a la Mad Max Fury Road, you have a train of apocalyptic vehicles that all do different things, you and your opponent, and you can do one of several actions every turn, and you do those back and forth, and you blow each other up, and whoever's last man standing wins. And it's so simple, but it's so tactical, and it genuinely, like when you're at PAX and you play that card game that scratches your brain right, there's nothing like it. It's just fantastic. It's very easy to understand and very easy to pick up and play. So I highly recommend picking up a copy of Dust Biters. From I'm8bit has a released copy of it that you can get as well. It's super good. I also want to quickly shout out Compile, which is a beautiful, speaking of beautiful packages, it is a card game that is sold to you in a deck box. So if you are a TCG person, it like feels how you get a deck box. And it's a game about two AIs trying to out-hack each other using different lines of code and different elements that occupy each of those lines. Each of the elements does different things, such as delete the thing next to it or shift what the opponent has. And every turn you do your action to ideally out-hack the other opponent and out-compile them. It's a little bit more cerebral, a little bit more complicated than Dust Biters, but if you're a trading card game person at all, or if you're just a turn-based strategy person, I think you'll really Compile will also scratch that part of your brain. It's so damn good.
Agreed. Those games are awesome.
Love them. I want to play them right now. Yeah, those are my Chatzums for this week. So that's what we got, folks. We'll be back for Cena next week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Magellan, as always, for being the Bashir to my Garrick, because according to Andrew Robinson, we should be having sex. Just kidding. And thank you also very much for listening to this episode of TrekChatz. Engage.